So I'm about the new YSL Myself Absolu, and I'm gonna try it out for the first time. If you're a subscriber, then you know how much I enjoy YSL Myself, the eau de parfum. The Le Parfum is good as well, but the eau de parfum is definitely among some of the best fragrances for everyday use. I'm a fan of this small line, which is built around orange blossom, so when I saw Absolu, I bought it straight away. Before we try it out for the first time, I do want to say something that I've talked about before, and that is that the prices are insane. I paid about 160 bucks for 60 ml of a YSL Myself. Some of the designers basically passed some of the niche brands when it comes to prices. Let me know how you feel about the prices on designers nowadays, and make sure you comment with your thoughts on the new YSL Myself Absolu. We have ginger, bergamot and cardamom at the top, orange blossom at the heart of it, and patchouli at the base. So it seems like they kept the sort of base DNA, i.e. the orange blossom and the patchouli and the bergamot from the original, but added ginger and cardamom. The bottle design is basically the same as the previous two, but this is done in shiny version. And while I do like the look of shiny bottles, I absolutely dislike them simply because they always end up with a lot of smudges and fingerprints, much like this one. But like always, it's the juice inside that matters, so let's go. Okay, up in the air, like a fresher version of the OG. So a bit of freshness straight away, and the orange blossom, which comes through at least up in air right away, feels slightly different compared to the original eau de parfum. I actually like this twist of the orange blossom, at least up in air. I'm not sure what they did to this, but this in a way feels a bit more floral, and its floral side has more nuance to it. And now on skin. Okay, definitely on skin, the freshness comes through in a much more intense way, with the bergamot pushing through the most. And when it comes to the freshness of Absolu on skin, there's definitely more nuance to its freshness compared to the eau de parfum, so that part of Absolu feels a bit more exciting. I mean, the OG eau de parfum opens up with a big dose of freshness as well, but this is very much a big dose of freshness coming from bergamot, whereas the freshness of Absolu definitely feels more nuanced and more exciting, with the bergamot taking the lead, and then you have a spicy kick from ginger as well. And pretty much right away, much like up in air, you get a dose of orange blossom right in opening. So right away, you definitely get the sort of a scent DNA of the original eau de parfum. But the orange blossom feels a bit different in here. And this one is a tough one to explain, because I do feel that the orange blossom is equally prominent in both of these, but in a way, and maybe it's because it has a different kind of scent profile with bergamot, cardamom and ginger instead of just bergamot in the eau de parfum, but the orange blossom here feels more nuanced, but at the same time slightly lighter, even though it's prominent. The more it has into the heart of it, the more you start getting a soft kind of woodiness. So this sort of transition reminds me of the original eau de parfum. And a sort of a recap of the opening through to the mids, the opening of this opens up in a fresh and spicy way. You get bergamot much like the OG eau de parfum. However, the freshness of Absolu feels richer and more nuanced. The orange blossom comes through right in the opening as well, but much like the freshness of Absolu, the orange blossom feels more nuanced compared to the eau de parfum. And even though the orange blossom feels equally prominent in both of these, it has a lighter feel in Absolu. The more it dries down, the stronger the woodiness gets, and this in a way sort of reminds me of the dry down of the original eau de parfum. But, and this is just based on my first impressions of it, the woodiness of Absolu is of the soft kind, much like it was in the eau de parfum, but it feels even softer in the Absolu. And the freshness from the opening is a lot softer in the dry down. However, its floral side is pretty much on the same level as it was in the mids, which makes me feel, again, this is just based on my first impressions of Absolu, that they made Absolu to be more intensely fresh with a more nuanced dose of freshness freshness compared to the original. They also made it more floral with a more nuanced dose of floral, but they toned down its woody side, which in a way is kind of interesting because I do feel that the woody side of the Eau de Parfum was already kind of soft to begin with. Its freshness is pretty much gone in the far dry down, and what remains after a few hours is basically mostly a softly woody scent with a bit of florals to it. So I'm definitely going to do a proper comparison of all three, but like a quick one right here, right now, I do feel that the Absolu has most similarities to the Eau de Parfum. And like I pretty much described earlier in this video, Absolu basically feels like a fresher version of the original Eau de Parfum with a more nuanced dose of freshness. The floral side of both of these feels sort of a fairly equally prominent. However, the floral side of Absolu feels more nuanced. Both Myslf Absolu and the OG Myslf Eau de Parfum have a soft woodiness to them. However, that part in Absolu feels a bit softer compared to the Eau de Parfum. So in a way, Myslf Absolu is for someone who wants an even more floral and fresh version of the original Eau de Parfum, but with a more nuanced dose of florals and freshness. The main similarity Absolu has with Le Parfum is the orange blossom, but the orange blossom in Absolu is definitely more nuanced compared to the Le Parfum. The Le Parfum is slightly less floral. Le Parfum does have a bit of freshness to it, but it's definitely not as intense, prominent and nuanced as in Absolu. Le Parfum focuses more on a combination of orange blossom, vanilla with an even more intense dose of woodiness compared to both the Eau de Parfum and Absolu. I'm gonna link to my Myslf Le Parfum video above where I talk more about these two and the similarities and differences. So make sure you check that one out. So the vibe of Mysf Absolu is definitely sexy. This is sexy fresh. This is floral and fresh in a sexy way. And I've said this before, but orange blossom done right brings a different kind of sexiness. When it comes to compliments and mass appeal, Mysf Absolu is definitely another compliment getter in the line. If you ever worn the OG Mysf Eau de Parfum, then you know how likable and mass appealing it is. And I do feel Absolu is equally mass appealing. Performance is a tough one. I really feel I gotta wear it more, but based on how it oozes from my skin and how it sort of lingers in the air around me, I do feel it's sort of around the same, on the same level as the Eau de Parfum, but perhaps a bit softer. So about average, I don't feel it's super strong, but I also don't feel it's a weak scent. When it comes to usage, so like seasons and occasions, I feel this is pretty much the same as the Eau de Parfum in that you can use it throughout the year, but with a focus on spring and summer. It's basically a mix of freshness, florals and woodiness, and there's absolutely nothing too deep or too heavy about Mysf Absolu. As for occasions, anytime really, I feel the same way about Absolu as I do about the Eau de Parfum, in that this is a great everyday kind of fragrance that works to pretty much any occasion. So who's Mysf Absolu for? Let's start with who's it's not for. If you absolutely dislike the scent of orange blossom, then it's definitely not for you. And if you dislike the Eau de Parfum, then you'll most likely not enjoy this one as well. If you usually dislike fresh or floral scents, then this is definitely not for you. If you enjoy the Eau de Parfum, then I think you most likely enjoy Absolu as well. I've basically compared these two throughout the entire video, so please do go back for more on the differences and similarities of the two. If you absolutely love the scent of orange blossom, then this is pretty much a must for you to at least try. So a quick one on some of the alternatives to Mysf Absolu, and I am going to focus on fragrances that are focused on orange blossom. So we have Mysf Eau de Parfum, we have Mysf Le Parfum, we have Parfums de Marly Galloway, which is also in a way a mix of freshness and orange blossom, but with the cool twist of also being powdery and musky. There's also Zara Sunrise on the Red Sand Dunes, which is basically a mix of freshness and orange blossom. That's a fantastic cheapie, by the way. Then you have Gucci Guilty Elixir, and you have Le Mal Pride Edition. So what are my final thoughts on Mysf Absolu based on my first impressions of it? This is basically sort of in a nutshell a more intensely fresh version of the Eau de Parfum with a more nuanced dose of freshness. It also has a more nuanced dose of florals to it. Much like the Eau de Parfum, it has a prominent floral side, but the floral side of Absolu is definitely more nuanced and exciting. These two are definitely, without a single doubt, quite similar, but they are also not exactly the same. But with that said, I do feel it's redundant to own both unless you absolutely love the scent of orange blossom, if you absolutely love the eau de parfum and would love to have a different take on it but with similarities. Don't go blind buying Absolu thinking it's going to be very, very, very different compared to the eau de parfum. But if you want this with a more nuanced dose of freshness and a more nuanced floral side, then definitely go for Absolu. I think this is absolutely gorgeous, but then again, I do love the scent of orange blossom, and the eau de parfum is definitely one of my favorite fragrances for everyday use. So this basically expands on the original but with a twist. And I'm not sure you can see this, but I passed halfway through my bottle of the eau de parfum, and I was actually thinking of buying a new bottle of it, but I don't think I'm gonna do that when I bought this one. Mostly because I do think they are basically doing the same thing, but in slightly different ways. So I want to know how you feel about Myslf Absolu. Do you think it's a good one? Do you think it's a bad one? Do you think it's redundant to own it if you already own any of the other two? Make sure you check out my Myslf Le Parfum video over there. Please do like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.